The silver ring is a unique tensor ring. Not only does it function as a tensor ring, the function of which we've covered in other videos, but silver gives it some additional qualities and benefits. First of all, silver is the most electrically conductive of the metals. It has more free electrons and this highly refined vibratory rate compared to other metals. When it's made into a tensor ring, silver emanates this pristine, pure, energetic field that excludes and transforms dense, energetic patterns. So impurities and lower vibrations are eventually cleared. Silver's been used for centuries for purifying water. And of course, most of you are aware of the fact that silver solutions are helpful today for microbial infections. It has antibiotic effects. And that's why a lot of people instinctively want to put the silver tensor ring in their water. But let's talk about that. In the Old West, people used a silver dollar in their canteens or in a jug of milk to keep it fresh. Knowing that, our first impulse, like most of you, is to put the silver tensor ring in water. But as an energetic tool, the silver ring actually behaves differently than a silver dollar does. Remember now, a tensor ring is a conductive wire that's folded and twisted, and then those ends are rejoined into a circle, so that this creates this region of rotating energy like a smoke ring. And an energetic column develops on both in either direction from the tensor ring. So tensor rings energetically organize water's molecular structure, and they have a shielding effect because of that column of energy that develops. So it's protective for water. Now, we expected the silver ring to amplify these effects of tensor rings, which it does. It structures the water, and it has an especially beautiful shielding effect because of the frequency of the silver itself. But then there were some influences that we didn't expect. When we put the ring in water, we sensed the water ended up with more silver than if a silver coin had been put in the water. So we tried both side by side. We put a silver coin in one glass of water and the silver ring in another. And there was definitely a difference in how much silver ended up in the water. What happened was almost electrolytic. Let me explain electrolysis. Electrolysis is how the first colloidal silver solutions were made, by passing a direct current through an electrolyte solution, or a solution that had minerals in it, using silver as the electrodes. So in this process, there are tiny particles of silver that get released into the water, and that was these first colloidal silver solutions that were made. During this process, you can see gas bubbles as the reaction progresses, because electrolysis splits water, and it was splitting silver off of those silver electrodes. Well, when we put the silver ring in water, we didn't see any bubbles, and we didn't see the release of silver from the ring. There wasn't a typical electric current, yet it was almost like there was this really refined form of current that was pulling almost-like particles of silver into the water. So all this took us down this little rabbit hole, but to make a long story short, we decided in the end that we would not recommend putting the silver tensor ring directly in water, just because so much silver could potentially end up in the water in a short period of time, and because, depending on the minerals that are in the water, that could influence the reaction too. So what was more interesting to us was the energetic imprint of the silver ring when it was used around water. After an hour or two, the water was still structured, and the water was pristinely pure. Even physical contaminants appeared to be inert. They just couldn't exist in this refined energetic field. Well, silver also carries the frequencies of truth and awareness. So we found that drinking the water actually cleansed these dense energies and opened the space for greater purity of thought. All in all, using the silver ring around water was just as good, and even better in some ways than putting it in water. So that's how we recommend it be used. The silver tensor ring is perfect around the opening of the water cradle, and it tends to amplify the effects that the water cradle creates. The ring's influence will extend 2 or 3 feet in all directions, and everything in a small room is actually affected by the refinement of the atmosphere. A lot of you will notice that, those of you who are more sensitive. One woman divided a bunch of cut flowers in half, and she put half next to her water cradle with the silver ring on top, and the other half she put in an adjoining room. And then several days later she called us because she was so excited to report the difference in how those cut flowers were lasting. The silver ring is also ideal on the spigot of a water dispenser. It produces the same effects as the water sits. It cleanses those dense energies, and then as the water passes through the tensor field on the way out, it gets the invigoration of that process as well as the water's delivered. It works great around the neck of a water bottle, especially since water bottles are often taken out of the house where they get exposed to lots of lower frequency energetic pollutants. So they're really nice for travel. And then we were nudged to look at the energy of a moving tensor ring. We had never looked at this before, and we found that movement activates another octave of a ring's toroidal field. So we started by creating circular movement in both directions, around our joints, knees and elbows. And after several minutes, you can feel it. Any of the rings are going to work for this, but the silver ring is especially easy to work with because of its size, and the silver really helps clear dense energies. You might also want to try it around your neck very gently and underarms during a cold or flu to support the lymphatic movement. Be gentle and drink lots of water before you try this because it really does activate the lymph. Now, for those of you who are interested in the antimicrobial properties of colloidal silver, we found that a commercially available silver solution with a known concentration could be enhanced using the silver ring around it. It brings organization to that solution. It activates many of the ormus elements that are in those kinds of solutions, and it enhances absorption. So in other words, you may be able to use less than the suggested amount if you work with the silver tensor ring around that solution. You might dilute it or use it straight. Experiment. We think that's the best way to get the antimicrobial benefits of colloidal silver without actually putting this tensor ring directly in your water, just because it's difficult to quantify the amount that's released, and not that it's a negative thing, but something with a known concentration is actually probably better. But the silver ring is made of 99.9% silver. It's fused where it's joined together rather than soldered, so it is solid silver if you decide to explore using it in your water. As we move into a time when we're becoming aware of the importance of frequency, the purifying frequency of the silver tensor ring is a powerful tool. We love it when you share your experiences in product reviews on the website, so don't forget to share as you have fun with your silver tensor ring.